Hello, everyone. Lynn and I are so happy to be here today for the double trouble that we're going to share, if you will. We're going to start with 3 tips for writing self-help books, and then we'll do a second session for 10 minutes, and we'll focus on author networking, which is so important. Think referrals versus cold leads, or not even leads, just cold, something very cold, like
Contact, just
networking.
contact versus really
Yes,
the relationship.
yes, context versus relationships. Thanks, Lynn. And so let's get started. We're looking at starting with 3 tips for writing self-help books. And I'll let you know a little bit about the background here. And it surprised me because I've been in the publishing world for 20 plus years, and I never knew that it was in 1859 that the first self-help book was published. And I love the name, Samuel Smiles. Well, I'm sure he got to smile all the way to some bank at that time because he wrote about the importance of hard work, and he also talked about perseverance, which, of course, that's still a strong topic today. But I love that there's a start to this whole trend around self-help. And I've said before, but I'll say it again, it used to be more about what and why, but now it's about how. And people really want to get deep into the how and make it easier for them because let's face it, life is as complex as it has ever been. So we need to simplify. So, what do you think about this, Lynn? This anchor that we have to look back in time and see what's happened since that time.
I think it's fascinating because these were the 2 tenets of that my father instilled in me. Hard work and perseverance were going to be what it took, and asking questions, of course.
Of course, the question, the question queen, right?
Yes.
That's what I call her. So, there's no question that self-help books focus on improvement, skill acquisition. It's about personal development. And there are so many people who are looking for how can I get better at this or that? There's so many opportunities today. And you can also build from easy to hard. You can start with simple tasks and build on those. When you do start on anything, I remember talking to a friend, for example, and she was saying, I just don't feel like exercising. She was a top marketer. And I said, well, how about this? Just start with 5 minutes and watch your favorite show while you're exercising. So that tip helped her get from the 5 minutes to the up to the 20 to the 30 minutes. And so I'm sure you all know too about James Clear and his work. So you've got Atomic Habits that he created, and he has over 3 million followers. Of course, let's go backwards in time. We've got Dale Carnegie, who his books still sell so well, making thousands of dollars a month. And then, of course, Think and Grow Rich. Thoughts, Lynn?
That Think and Grow Rich, it shows up all the time. It really does.
Yeah. Did you ever have a group that you had joined, a Think and Grow Rich group?
I did. I never finished it, but I did start it. And it's
remember perseverance, Lynn.
No, I lost perseverance. But I do have to say that the lessons in it were, memorable. I'm not going to be able to repeat any of them right now, but I do know that doing something as a group really keeps moving you forward. There's momentum in the fact that there's more than one of you.
But I'm sure she's coming back here. What did you say, Lynn? We lost a little bit.
There's momentum in studying something as a group.
Yes. And our author support group, we find that to be true. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going with this third tip here. Many people aspire to adopt new skills or improve them in various areas. And the tip here is, to your point, get a buddy, get an accountability buddy, or form a group. And of course, I'm going to segue eventually into the networking side, which I like to say the best network you can ever join is the one you create. And I found that to be true through the years over and over and over again. But going here and looking at the skill adoption and the opportunity to have a group that helps you, what I've decided, so it's me sharing now what I've been thinking about this week. It came to me that this support group, the author support group, and we're focused primarily, I want to say 90% around marketing, book marketing. What I'm seeing we should do is actually work together and share excerpts from our books, because that's where, as I like to say from a marketing standpoint, you're creating a connection to the brain and to the heart. So, I've mentioned Gary Zukav to others before. The greatest journey, or the longest journey you'll ever take, is from your head to your heart. Well, that's the same thing in marketing. It's people buy with emotion, AKA hearts, and justify with fact. So this heart-centered place of reading excerpts from your book, I think, can go a long way to connecting to your audiences. And so if you have a self-help book, what I've done with clients through the years, well over 100, is help them identify their process. And I know, Lynn, then, talk just a little bit about your end of creating fantastic questions that get really superb answers.
I've discovered that taking people back, so I help them become a champion of whatever it is they want to be doing more than anything else for people. And the way I do that is not ask them why. Asking why is kind of like gets you in a box. So what instead I do is take me back to the first moment when you knew that that something like, for me, for asking questions became sort of like a foundational tool that I built over years and years and years. When did I knew that? Well, I knew it when my father said to me, the best way for you to learn and to be as smart as anybody around you is to ask them questions. And that combined with being in learning for 25 years, I kind of can say, I kind of move it into that how-to pretty quick.
That's a really good point. It's even asking yourself questions. And this is a fun one that I used to see. And a lot of speakers, I was part of National Speakers Association for a number of years. And I love the one, raise your hand as high as you can. And then there's, no matter what, even if you say it to yourself, and then they, as high as you can, and then they say, okay, now raise it higher, and you do every time. And I've tried to change that, but I think that shows, since we're in how to, the power of getting great questions and asking them of others and asking it of yourself. So I know through the time we've already had to spend together, the process of questions help open up the whole how-to space, I think. So I know we're using my 75 cage rattling questions to change the way you work book that came out right around the year 2000. And now I was sharing with you today, that's such a nice self-help book because it was used like at the Gap a lot and a variety of other places. And I know that the questions opened up opportunities for people. So think about that when you're writing your book too.
I think that asking what I call unexpected questions kind of clear a path for people to think differently.
Yes.
I did this with somebody yesterday, and I said, and she's a course creator, and I said, when was the first time you realized that creating things from nothing was interesting and exciting for you? She said, oh, like when I was 9.
Wow, that's great. And again, in NSA, National Speakers Association, the thing I learned there was that when you can go back to your childhood, it's also very connective, and people resonate because we were all children. So I know that Jerry Perrin, hi Jerry, I'm glad you're with us today. Please buy with their heart and justify with their facts. And Jerry, that's certainly relevant to you because Jerry helped me realize the benefits of negotiating. And to me, his presence in our support group, when it was fascinating because he's been in the group for 2 years, but it was when he opened the conversation, it was his turn around negotiating. It was fabulous. Everybody was like, their mouths were hanging down. So a shout out to Jerry Perrin for his negotiating tips. It made a big difference. So on that note, we're going to switch over. But before we go, just the last tip, many people aspire to adopt new skills or improve them in various areas. There's no question, the research shows that now people definitely are interested in how-to books. And that's why or how-to dash self-help in probably about a month or less, I will have a freebie to give out on self-help books so that people can start that journey and help others.
I just want to add one more thing, Melissa, about learning. There's some people spend years and years and years learning one skill or kind of a set of skills, and then you take a break, and then you come back and you realize all the things you hadn't considered learning on the same set of skills. So I say, give yourself a chance to relearn.
Yes.
Because you can go deeper, and that's when mastery starts to show up.
That's a very good comment because I totally agree with you. I used to teach gymnastics a long time ago. And then when I was a teen, actually, cheerleading and all that fun stuff in college, I decided in college I would take Gymnastics 101 over myself. I did it again after all those years of gymnastics. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. And that's a really good point. Thanks.
So let's go to author networking.
Yes, which the reason, again, that we bring in networking meets publishing and author book publishing is because if you think about it, the top form of growing a business or a career, it always comes back to a network. And I will reference again my Awaken the Network, Where Destiny Happens podcast. You can even just type it in Google. You'll find it on Apple and all kinds of places, and the Networlding site. And also on Networlding, we also have there are also well over, I believe, 1,000 now blog posts. And so there's a lot of information in there because I love to share. So moving here to the networking, first tip is focus on the quality of versus the quantity of your relationships. Through the years and doing so many interactive networking events, people don't have a really good roadmap for networking. Now, I will say that anyone who really wants that I have the Networlding Guidebook. I do give it away. It's what we're using too for the Best Networking Mentors contest that we ran. And going forward, we're now creating the best mentoring networkers who are ambassadors. We're turning them into ambassadors, because wouldn't you like to be in a room where everybody really cares about helping each other and being a mentor? Now, Becca was saying, I'm going back to Becca. Thank you. She's saying, yes, trust Lynn has a good point about learning. So, change your perspective, change as well as technology, and you might need to learn something from a new side of the coin. So I'm glad we were able to help someone there. Thanks, Becca. What about, how do you see quality versus quantity of relationships?
I think what I've learned, or I continue to learn and relearn, is that the quality changes over time. It doesn't necessarily it's not a more matter of getting better and better. It's a matter of context. So your situation changes over time, people's jobs change over time, and life happens. And so the quality of your relationship can really broaden based on the context that you're in at the time. And I find that to be fascinating. I've had many entrepreneurs speak at conferences, and they're in such a different place now than they were before, that's fascinating to kind of reconnect with them and find out what they need now compared to what they needed 7 years ago.
Another very good point. And I think that because we have the ability to be online with people from all over the world, it even gives you that richer perspective. I think I told you I'm going to be talking to an emergency room nurse from the other side of the world, and I will love to hear her perspective. And so, people from different walks of life want to even do a pivot and go into another career. That's especially important. One of the young mentee contributors to our contest is a young woman named Melissa Rezai. And I love that she was part of it. And she's still in her 20s. And she just, by the way, came and visited me, wanting to meet in person. And that is, to me, what the quality relationship is all about, is really getting people connected and looking especially at helping the younger generations, which is a big passion. So we're still having so much fun, and it's almost like I shouldn't say almost, it is like the never-ending contest, but I would say it's actually the never-ending mentoring, networking, mentor, ambassador building that we're doing, and growing a community, which my good friend Mark Schaefer, who has a podcast in the top 1% out there, you really have to follow him. He's truly always sharing so much wisdom. So a shout out to him too. So tip 2, we got one more tip here. Remember, it's not just who you know or where you go, but how others know you. Now, I'm sure there's someone else out there who's saying this, but most people, I remember when I was doing a lot of training, they were saying, oh, who you know is where you go. So it's really not that. It's how people know you. And the how comes from you building trust. And one other thing I'll mention is I created a book called Angels in the Workplace, and it was 7 spiritual beliefs made practical. So it was faith, hope, charity, courage, truth, trust, and love. But those words all dovetail into the word trust. Even faith comes from the Latin root fidere, which means trust. So my co-author, I shouldn't call him my co-author, I'm his co-author, Billy Dexter, who I do our podcast together every other Thursday. he really helped me with that idea of trust. And he said the biggest form of trust is first, the creation of it is to trust yourself. Any thoughts on this one?
Oh, that's a biggie. Trusting yourself is really, it depends on your situation, but trusting yourself to, on judgment and discernment
Mm-hmm.
is an evolution. I feel like I used to move really quick without too much discernment, and now discernment is kind of how I operate, because like you
Mm-hmm.
look at things from all different points of view, and as you start to do that, the way you think expands.
That's right. It is exactly that. And there's so much here, but I know we're getting to our wrap up point. So, master purposeful exchanging conversations that build exchanging relationships. It's one thing to connect with someone like we do in networking, but it's a totally different thing to actually follow through and have exchanges. And as I constantly say, we give trees carbon dioxide and they give us oxygen. And by the way, there's a book called Breathe that I just listened to on Blinkist. It's Blinkist. And it said that there are so many benefits of actually breathing through your nose. Uh,
Definitely.
and it's the expelling of carbon dioxide that also is beneficial to you. And because I'm not an expert in that area, I'm passing it on. The how to do this, check out that book, check out now Blinkist, because if you're like me, you're really moving fast. So you want to, as much as you can, get wisdom. And Blinkist is great. And by the way, they're not a sponsor of us yet, but I keep recommending them. So, with that said, it's been such a lovely time we've spent, and we want to be very conscientious of your time. So, the question is, are you ready to elevate your thought leadership game and make a lasting impact on the world? My number one value, which is where net welding starts, your top 4 values. My number one, after taking 1,000 people through the process when net welding came out in the year 2000 and continuing with that for years, what I know to be true is it's all about making a difference. And when you do that, things really get better for you and for others. It's a really beautiful exchange. So if you'd like to have a copy of this, you can use the QR code and take advantage of it. Check out the Net Welding site. And thank you, Lynn. And we'll be
Thank
back
you.
in a couple weeks. And we hope you have a great week.